Well, thank you for joining us on this fine morning. Wanted to touch base with everybody and kind of chat a bit about the whole KIP-5 and Rebase timings and how that's affected things here. So I personally, I'll kind of start off. I personally had noticed. I watched the Rebase times right when we launched, and kind of tracked that really closely at that point in time, and it all seemed pretty in line with our 8-hour time frames, and kind of moved on to worrying about some other things, and getting ready for pushing out the KIP3 changes. We had some people say, "Hey, these bases are faster," and I noticed maybe one or two, but I wasn't personally tracking it all the time. And so a couple days ago, I went out and took some queries and looked at Dune, and that's kind of when it's like, oh yeah, our average rebase time, has definitely trended down, which means that we're actually getting more rewards and on an annualized basis than we all thought. The standard Olympus style works is that you can rebase every 8 hours, which equates to 1,095 rebases per year. So so with this newer average time is around 7.25 hours, it actually ends up being around 1,200 rebases a year. So policy team, we got together over the weekend and kind of crunched some numbers and came up with an adjustment so that we could really hit the target, real world APY of 22,000 that we all approved and set forth on the framework in KIP3. So this is really just to kind of give the community a heads up that hey, we've been getting some extra rewards here, and we'd like to align with what we all wanted to do with KIP3. And then on the flip side of this, now we also have something else to watch and monitor and make sure that we can take into account in our calculations as far as making proposals and deciding on things as a community. I am a robot. Let me try one thing here. I can try joining on for you. One moment, guys.
Wow, rating. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. How's everyone else?
I'm a little under the weather right now.
Are you feeling better?
A little bit. I'm just usually muted so you guys won't hear me cough.
So, in any case, I was just, doing a bit of calculations for my own, in terms of numbers, right? In terms of like sKlima, like how that would actually be affected. Given that when KIP is actually put up for formal vote and in the event it actually passes. So based on my calculation, I actually noticed that whatever we were supposed to be getting with the original APY, if we were to leave the KIP3 alone and versus if KIP5 were to actually pass, that's actually kind of like we'll essentially receive the same amount of rewards Just instead of a 14-day delay, it's about 20 days delay instead. So that's actually about 5 days difference. So yeah, that's just my observation, to be open to the rest of the community, because I think that's the sole purpose of our session for this fireside chat, is to really educate and just take in any questions from the community. And welcome back, Cujo.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Hopefully
yeah,
it's a little bit better.
Much better. Yeah. See, there's a question saying like, what's not noticed when the difference to delta was around 20K? The delta, I mean, 20K seems like a lot to us, but it's mainly due to the compounding nature, right? Like, because everything compounds, I think humans are really good at understanding the compounding nature. Like the effects of it is really minimal. Effects of it is really subtle. Like Khyezr said, the time to double is only 5 days more. We're using this framework, right? But when we see the APY half, we assume it's a much drastic, a much bigger change. But the reality is, it's just the power of compounding, and that effect is magnified on that, right? But the day-to-day changes are very, very small. All right, where should we go next, Cujo?
So I can get some people up here. Let's see. Zion. Come on up.
Hello?
Hey, Zion.
Yes,
What's going on?
everything's fine.
What's
I'm
up?
just
What's up?
oh, I wanted to ask, is there the maximum that you can stake at once? Is that a set number, or is that fluctuating a lot also?
A maximum you can stake. There's no maximum amount that you can stake, as far as I know.
There is not.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
stake all the Klima you have.
Okay, but I don't get why it seems so profitable. So there must be some catch, right? I'm just way too new to this.
There, yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just stick with us for a year, and you'll save the world while acquiring monetary value. Indeed,
Okay.
as long as you trust in us.
Okay. I guess so. See.
Well, the APY is really determined by the kind of revenue we obtain, right, from bonding. So the assumptions you have to take is that the protocol will remain healthy within a year, right, and we'll obtain the revenue we need to sustain our values, right. So that's the risk you take as an investor, right? Will Klima last a year? Will Klima retain the revenue it takes today? Will it expand to match the revenue needs to succeed, right? And I think we will. We're adding new integrations every day. We're talking with people in the current markets every day. I'm really excited when we get the ITMOs, right? The compliance market carbon credits. Once that occurs, that is a huge unlock for us to acquire carbon tonnage, right? Because there's a lot of carbon tons in the real life world. We just have to get them, and society and the carbon market just has to evolve, or just have to evolve for us to get them, right? The first country that issues their ITMOs as NFTs will acquire them all, right? And those aren't small carbon credits, right? Quantity. Those are really big and really high quality ones. So we are anxiously awaiting for them to happen, right? But yeah, the The APY seems big, but that's just because we're in like the very early stages of KlimaDAO, right? The very early stages of creating currency. Like we're doing, if we're doing 40K right now, 70K APY. But like you compare it to Bitcoin or like any sort of bootstrapping currency, Bitcoin went from 0 tokens to 1 million tokens, or 2 million tokens within a year, and that's like infinite APY, right? You shouldn't think of it APY, but you think of it as like the bootstrapping of currency. And over time it will decrease, right? Just like how Bitcoin decreases over time. The like mining rewards goes from 25 to 12.5 to 6.25, and so on and so on. And it's just because the currency itself gets stronger and stronger, just like we'll get stronger and stronger as KlimaDAO goes on, So yeah, the APY is big, just to incentivize y'all, right? It makes sense. We're a new currency, we're not really proven yet, but over time, the reward should match the risk you're taking, right? At stake here.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, is that sorry for like soapbox rant, but is that like did that make sense to you?
To me, yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
A lot, Zero.
Any other questions, sir?
Nope. Thanks.
All right, awesome. Thank you for your question. I'll pull you back to the audience. All right, Cujo, don't be mad. Don't bring up a dog. Bring up Cryptokng.
Yeah.
Yes.
How you doing, sir?
Cryptokng.
One second. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Loud and clear, sir.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna, if you guys can run me down the APY. What's changing? For some odd reason, I cannot find the way to vote on the actual project. So if you guys also can run me through that. Yeah, just questions about how the APY gonna change. If there is maybe a tab to where we can see where the market cap will increase with the APY go lower. I want everybody else to know that if APY going lower, it's not a bad thing. It actually appreciates the coin. So Olympus has done it for a while, and it's been working out just fine. But yeah, I definitely want to know what's the projection and what's the roadmap.
Yeah, so I'm gonna toss the like my main Doom dashboard here in the office Q&A. That's an awesome place to I look at that all the time.
Yeah.
For looking at things like market cap and price and APYs. One of the things that I did change over the weekend here was after discovering after taking into account these shorter rebase periods, you'll see that APY over time now has a standard APY and an adjusted APY. Let me take a line, and that's in the KIP. And that's just so the APY, the adjusted APY, is adjusting for like the time between rebases for the last like 30 rebases.
Okay.
So that's like reality. The adjusted APY is kind of the reality check versus what we were displaying on the app on that front. And so that's a moving average. That'll change as Polygon blocks speed up or slow down. And as such, the other nice thing is we'll be able to use this to track and make sure that we keep on target with our real APY versus what is approved through on the framework. What was the other part of your question? I think I missed part of it.
What was like the roadmap for it? Like, is there a specific roadmap for it, or?
Yeah. So as far as like adjusting back, adjusting this for the rebase time period. This would go into effect after the current reduction finishes in around another week, 8 days, 7-8 days. So basically you can hop into the forum, which is in the announcement. There's a forum post. You can vote there. That's an informal vote. So that's kind of just a temperature check, if you will, on the community as far as whether or not it should go to a snapshot vote. And we'll close that on tomorrow at 1600 UTC. And if that response is favorable, then we'll post up the snapshot vote where everybody can go vote, and that'll be announced in the announcements.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm planning on. I don't like to disclose a lot of stuff there, especially moves in my portfolio. But love what you guys are doing. It's a great project. I know somebody came on stage just a second ago and was asking if there is a catch. There's not really a catch. I've been in there since day one, since actually the pre-sale. And I the only thing I can say I'm mad about it that I didn't get buy more. That's the only thing I'm mad about. So that's for that. But yeah, I'll definitely looking into putting definitely a large sum into the project pretty soon. So obviously it's important for me to know when those APYs will change, because again, the price will appreciate, and I would like to get in a little earlier before that happens.
I like those words. Makes me very happy. Maybe dogs are better than cats.
Definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Definitely. Thank you, guys.
All right, should we get AgileGoat?
Wait, what happened to Cujo? Okay, he's
So,
back in.
I'm still figuring out Discord.
Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Hey, great to meet you guys. Thank you for hosting these sessions. They're really transparent and good. What was I going to say? We've got quite a few people in our Patreon group that are invested with you guys, and one of the questions that came out this morning was Verra kind of distancing themselves from KlimaDAO, which I can understand to a point for logical reasons. And what my understanding with Verra is they bring carbon tons onto the chain, right? But once it's on that chain, that carbon ton is retired, right? So there's never going to be a resale option in the open market, which makes sense to me, because if there was a resale market, how are you going to get to a carbon neutral position? It should retire. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what is backing Klima or Klima within its actual treasury. Is it the BCT credits? And is not being, in your guys' perception, is it not being available to be sold on the open market something that is an issue?
Yeah, so I can take a stab at this. Yeah, so the BCT tokens are what backs Klima. I think Klima as a whole is still coming up with the right verbiage as far as a response on that statement. I've read it over. So this is just my personal take on this front. But it's really just them kind of distancing themselves like legally, because they're kind of a third party verifier and provider. Toucan is actually the one right now Toucan protocol, they're the ones who are actually bridging over the Verra carbon tons into the blockchain. So that's the project and the protocol that is being utilized right now to create BCT. And really the way they designed it, in order to prevent any double spending, of those credits, that's why they required, you know, a retirement on the old legacy Verra registry so that they can issue them one for one verifiably and not double spend on the blockchain. And really, when Toucan, you know, kind of reissues these or you know, creates the BCTs, they're not fully retired or off, you know, burned yet. I can still buy a BCT and burn it and say, and you know, that's the final use of it. So it's kind of whoever does the final, you know, has the final use of that carbon credit is, you know, the actual, you know, claiming that offset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because the model's fascinating. So the DAO obviously is relatively new, and Olympus is doing well, but it's still a relatively new. You know, my background is financial regulation, so this is fascinating to me, and it's very unique, and I can see a sustainable model. And the APY, I know people freak out and go, it's too good to be true, but the logic of that is obviously the APY will decrease and the price will increase over a period of time when you hit a particular market cap. You just have the benefit of getting in earlier and getting that additional APY, as long as there's, you know, I don't like using the word rug pulls, but as long as it's a legit project and with the right intentions and so forth. So that doesn't frighten me at all. And I think you guys are in a first mover position, which if done well, you know, you'll do very well for yourselves, never mind your investors. So yeah, you did answer it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great question. Okay, I'm gonna put you. You don't have any more questions, PJ. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna put you back to the audience and bring in Rue Crazy. Rue Crazy, you there? I sent you an invite. You're all sitting in the BidnessPEPE. While we're waiting for him. I like your Pepe meme, sir. Very professional, very business-like.
Hello.
How you
How's it
doing?
going?
How you doing?
How you doing,
How
guys?
are you doing, BidnessPEPE?
Yeah, I gotta keep it professional, you know.
Yes, sir.
I actually have a question for the new KIP-5 proposal. I've read that the average, what is it called, rebase rate was actually 7.2 hours instead of 8 hours, which I'm guessing accumulates over the time you have been live or whatever. What kind of consequences does this have for the short to mid-term of this project, and how you guys, what can you say, regulating your roadmap to fit in this new obstacle or like whatever?
Yeah. So, when we launched 6 weeks ago, we took a look at, you know, the average block times in Polygon, which you can find on Polygon Scan. They've got a chart. Let me find a link while I'm talking here. And now things are trending. You know, we wanted to target that around 8 hour rebase time, so we used a 2.5 second block time. Since then, the block times have trended downwards, leading to these faster rebases in the previous few weeks. So short term, it means that we're paying out more rewards faster than expected. Now, on the flip side, with how the system is set up, it uses a consistent block time between staking and bonding, you know, as far as vesting and all of that. So, you know, everybody, your bonds would have vested a little bit faster than 5 days as well. So everything kind of stays in sync, since everything is looking at blocks and not actual time. And I'm not a crazy expert on this, but I know that this is something that is a challenge as far as using, you know, dealing with time and blockchains. Yeah, it's beat me to it. Okay. So that's kind of the rationale on that front. And I'm sorry, I forgot the other part of your question.
Like, does this mistake have any bigger or like consequences for your future of this project?
I think so. Yeah. So this, this kind of discovery has just kind of highlighted an issue with, are the epoch length, the blocks per rebase are like they're coded into the contracts when we deployed them. So we'd have to like deploy entirely new staking contracts if we wanted to change it based on different block times. So I think realistically, like long-term impacts, we've hit, we've increased our supply a little bit faster here in the beginning, but we've also caught it here 6 weeks in, and with KIP-5, we want to align that back down to that, that APY, that reward rate framework that we all talked about and approved in KIP-3, so we can align everything back to reality and continue on a sustainable, with the sustainability at the forefront moving forward long term.
Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yep, thank you.
I think for me, the biggest downside is that like because with the higher APYs, this reduction that we did had to come much faster than if we did like if we had a regular 35 to 40k APY, right? Like yeah, I'm a DGen too, at heart, I love 70k APY, I love 100k APY, but the reality is that we have to reduce the APY in order to sustain our metrics, right? And higher our initial APY was, the faster we had to reduce our APY, in the future. So like if we had 40k APY on day one, I'd imagine that we wouldn't have, done a reduction until maybe a week or another 2 weeks ahead, and we could like all have those higher KPIs. And, or either that or our metrics would have been much more, cooler, much more better, right? Not to say that our metrics are very bad, like our metrics are very good right now. But if you notice where like our BZT backing, for example, is just stabilizing around, 5, right? It's just slowly trending up, right? We went from 4.1 to now we're at 5.07. But if we had a lower APY, that BCT backing would have been much higher, right? And that might have, provided more confidence to the protocol, right? Because everybody thought the APY is 40. They didn't really price in the fact that APY is 70k. So there's a lot of like psychological things that happen and a lot of metrics that not suffered, but like wouldn't have reached their max potential if we had 40k instead of 70k, right? I was doing some calculations yesterday. If we had 40k APY, for example, or 35 from day one, we would have like 5.5, 5.4 BCTs per Klima instead of 5.07, and we would have had a much higher backing treasury market value of BCTs. And or if the backing stayed the same, the price of the BCTs would have been higher, which would have onboarded even more base carbon tons. So it's the very little things that make a great impact. Fortunately, we found this very early in our stage. We're here for decades, and we found this on like the first or second month, so not a problem going forward. But yeah, that's like the biggest downside I see from this whole journey here.
Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot. And do you have like, nah, never mind. Don't worry about it.
No. You're a community member. What's up? What's up, sir?
I was just seeing in the chat a lot of, I don't understand it fully, so I don't want to go there. But like a lot of people have been talking about the pKLIMA dumping and like and what do you call unbalance about the amount of pKLIMA issued and the market cap.
You guys want Cujo, or you want me to say it?
Oh, Do you want to do this one?
Yeah, so essentially what happened is that like it's not that they got an unfair one. It's because we kind of made the terms more stricter for them to redeem their pKLIMA. Essentially, we assumed that the KLIMA the KLIMA they claim is also staked, right? And this way they don't kind of double dip on both pKLIMA awards and staking awards. So it's made it such that the only difference they'll redeem now is like the bonding delta, right? So so they'll grow, the amount they claim decreases, or I guess like the amount of pKLIMA they have decreases with the index, or like the amount they claim grows with the index, right? So they claimed 1 at index 1, and they staked it, at index 2 they had 2, but if they sold 1 KLIMA at index 1, and they sold it at index 1, and then index 2 came, the protocol thinks it's as if they had 2 pKLIMAs. So when a lot of investors, if they like sell their pKLIMAs, right, whether to do their own thing or fund other projects, like carbon project, for example, then they have to take the blunt of that index growth, right? So yeah, if they sell, then they'll probably lose a majority of their rewards, or the majority of their pKLIMAs, right? Because we're expecting billions of supply, right? Hundreds of billions in supply. Like it seems so far off today, but it is not a unfeasible goal to get hundreds of billions of carbon credits into the on-chain world. But yeah, like if that happens, then they'll lose like probably like 90% of their pKLIMAs, to be frank with you.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and personally, it's better for us to experience that sell pressure now than the same like percentage sell pressure in like a year when the market cap is 100 billion and then we crash to like 50 billion just because of people who are holding pKLIMA, right? Whereas now it's like it's a smaller delta in absolute terms in our community, and much smaller now. Like when we become very very retail focused, like when everybody kind of knows about Klima, because our narrative is very strong, and we're trying to push for, retail adoption, right? You just buy Klima and you're saving the world. So I don't want to scare them off too when it crashes now. But you guys are very resilient. You guys are very smart. I trust in y'all to like read the docs and understand the protocol on a deep level. So I just can't have the same expectations for the retail dog coin Shiba Inu buyers, so. But yeah, if that's all the questions we had, I will
think, Are you crazy made it up here?
That was all
Yeah.
my questions. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, great emoji, great meme icon, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's a question, sir.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, real crazy?
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Yep, we can hear you.
Hi there.
Okay.
You're-
Can I speak?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We are a group of about 250 people. We've been investing on Klima for a while. I know this question may not be related to today's discussion, but also individually, we do invest separately on the Klima. And recently opened a new wallet on MetaMask and put Klima on the app. I did not transfer the Klima to the MetaMask, but within about 3 or 4 hours, my sKlima disappeared from the Klima app. I was wondering who it would be wise to contact to see if it can be figured out why I lost. It was about 17 or 18 Klima on that one.
Have you looked at your wallet address in Polygon scan?
Yes, I looked at
That'll-
the Polygon scan. I looked at DBank. I traced the transaction. It says it was sent out. Usually the transaction was done around 3 or 4 that I put it in the Klima account. At 7 o'clock, there was a transaction which says sent out. And I never sent out anything because we closed the office and everything. And There was no transaction that happened at that time.
Yeah. So from some of the moderations that we actually did in the general channel, I'm not saying that you probably actually did this, but just out of curiosity, do you happen to interact with any of the DMs that actually reached out to you to, probably interact with any other websites other than what we put up on official links?
No, I don't do anything. So I went to the KlimaDAO.finance, and that's where I used the app, and that's all I did. And the MetaMask was a new wallet that I downloaded from the Google Chrome extension. I had not transferred my sKlima to the MetaMask wallet after I staked it. This one I'm doing it on an individual level, but the bigger group that we are talking about, we have millions of dollars on Klima. So this was a separate thing that we tried. I was trying to actually educate the others on how to go independent on that, but I lost my 17 on that.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to. I don't know, like. I mean, I know if you want to like DM me a wallet address, I could probably take a look and
Sure.
see a little
How
bit
do
further.
I do that to you?
You can just send me a DM on Discord.
This is for Archimedes. Who makes that?
Cujo.
Sorry.
This is Cujo.
Pardon me?
Cujo.
Cujo. Okay. Cujo. Okay. Cujo, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll send you images of all the transactions and also the addresses. And if you can help me out, that'll be good. Because when I talk to the bigger group, it really helps us all figure out how to do some of these things and be a little bit more obvious of the things that can happen. So, and I'm so glad I was able to sit and talk to you guys today. I do appreciate your time.
Yep, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Joxy.
Joxy, yeah.
Come on up.
Oops. Cujo rock himself again.
Clicking the wrong button.
All right, I'll just send me. I think the invite was actually sent to Joxy, but yeah.
Yeah. Guess we'll wait for them. Joxy, are you there? Okay, Macon Bank. Come on up. Okay. Let's say dox me. We'll find somebody here. We'll pop up. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for your time. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I basically have two questions. The first one is about the statement Verra issued. I just when I was scrolling through the Q&A channel, like I saw one of the emails from Carbon Pulse and a link to the statement by Verra, and I would just like to understand: are you concerned about this at all? Because well, if I look at the statement, says like the terms of use contain statements that like prohibit the creation of like instruments that are that have VCUs as underlines. Like, is that not really an issue?
I mean, I think, for me personally, I think that that'd be an issue for whoever, like, because there's different individual, account holders and stuff that are bridging over those credits potentially. But I mean, I don't personally have enough info on this. I do know that there has been a lot of discussion on this topic in the let's see, which one is it? It's one of the carbon, one of the carbon markets channel. There's been a lot of discussion on this statement from Verra in the carbon markets channel, and like truthfully, you'd probably get a better answer on that front from people who are in it and working on it, involved in the carbon market side than me, personally.
Yeah, for
I
me
think
personally, for when I was like reading it, pardon my French, but it's basically legal ass coverage from what I've like read. Because like in my opinion, this has been the most craziest thing the car market has experienced in the past 20 years, right? The car market was very slow, but it's like honestly, I think Verra wants us to like keep going, and they want us to succeed, right? But they've been getting calls about this whole crypto thing, so they just need like a legal statement just to mend the bridge until they have an official statement, and that takes time in the traditional world, and like Toucan has been in talks with Verra like 24/7. Like Verra is very aware of what Toucan is and how it works, and they're very happy, or they're very interested in a positive way in what Toucan is doing.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
that's really good to hear. And also, kind of what you just said goes together with what my intuition suggests, that the carbon markets is really interesting for Verra, right? It would be really confusing for me if they want to like shut down Toucan or something like that. And also my second question. Because I don't have a lot of time right now, I can't really follow all the stuff that's going on in the project, but and especially not the whole complicated world of carbon markets. But has there any progress been made towards compliance carbon credits being issued on the blockchain? I think there was like this one project that was presented at the COP26, but have there been any further developments?
yeah, COP26, that was announced. Essentially, the whole world, or whole UN, agreed that ITMOs, which is compliant markets carbon tons, can be issued on the blockchain as NFTs, right? Before there was a lot of mysterious, there was a lot of news lacking on whether or not people could accept it. Like in theory, like before this COP26, it could be accepted, but if there's no guarantee like writing, then we can't really do much. But now they've officially said that yes, ITMOs can be issued as NFTs, and they will be compliant, and we will take them, and we will trust them, and we'll accept them. So now we're just waiting for the first country to issue ITMOs as NFTs, or there's a new bridging system, just like Toucan, that converts ITMOs, traditional ITMOs to on-chain NFTs. So whichever comes first, and we'll take a while. But yeah, very bullish we honestly thought, and when we were talking about it, we thought it was gonna come in a year or so, but it looks like sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's super awesome. When I read the announcement, I was really happy as well. So okay, just one more question I came up with on the spot. Have there been any updates on carbon accounting, for example, for, I don't know, firms? Let's say, I don't know, Apple wants to offset using Klima in some way. Have there been any like legal updates or something like that?
Not specifically, like not any updates. I know that our partnerships team has been working with reaching out and and starting that dialogue with potential partners on that front.
There hasn't been anything announced, but from like a market perspective, like the S&P Platts, they've done pretty extensive coverage on BCT and its effect on the VCM. So that's been at least exciting to see, from not like adoption yet, but at least coverage and interest from market actors.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't want to waste any more of your time. Thank you very much for your for your answers, and for the hard work you do. I'm very bullish on the project, and I'm looking forward to be here in 10 years still and see what kind of impact this will have had by then. Thanks.
Cheers, thanks. Let's see. Making Bank made it back. Come on up.
Sweet. Thank you guys for bringing me up. So I'm part of a group too, and we're pretty excited about Klima. One of the questions I have, though, on one of the calls previously, you guys had mentioned some upcoming partnerships that should be announced next month. One of them being Rainforest Alliance Group, which I deem to be a pretty big one. I was hoping that you can give an update. Is this something that we can still expect? 1 and 2, if you kind of break down to some of the audience members how a partnership like this, how it would work possibly to benefit like a Klima, saying that they do represent over 70 countries and tons of farmers, how would such a partnership be of great impact to Klima in a positive way?
Yeah, regarding the partnership with Rainforest Alliance, I'm not the person that's and talking with them every day. That's more Archimedes, but we're still very much in talks with them for what I've know with Archimedes. So yeah, we're still expecting that. There's no bumps in that partnership.
Keep an eye out for a Gitcoin grant.
Yes,
That's
soon. But regarding like the benefits of KlimaDAO or benefits of Rainforest Alliance, they can one of the benefits is that they could use our BCT mechanism to offset their carbon emissions, or advertisement or marketing or whatever. But the main thing is that they can utilize the BCT mechanism, right? And adoption of BCT is a very much a linear effect, a very 0 to 1 kind of thing, right? It only takes one company to use BCT as like their first like offsetting mechanism instead of like off-chain burning retirement, right? And once Rainforest Alliance uses it, then it's a very reputable brand that inspires and instills confidence within our mechanism. Like keep in mind, this is very much a new discovery in both the on-chain and off-chain world, right? And like no one has ever done it before, right? So there's a lot of doubt in us still, which is rightly so, right? There's a bunch of Karen-haired anime character cat person trying to disrupt the current markets. There's going to be some doubt. There's going to be some haters, right? But it just takes one very reputable brand to like believe in us, and then slowly but surely more people will come and use BCTs as an offset, which is our goal, right? Like BCTs are essentially the same thing as off-chain carbon tons, but the ability to buy them very easily with no friction and remove all carbon middlemen. Like it's a very powerful tool, but we just have to get people to believe in that and use it. And once that happens, we expect more people to offset, more companies offset it, more individuals, more retail, more institutions. Everybody will start using BCTs. But that's my goal, in my opinion.
All right, thank you for your answer there. And if you can just break it down a little bit further, right? Because understandably so, there are a lot of terminologies being thrown around: BCT, VCMs, ITMOs, BITMOs, all that jazz. But if you can make it understandable so that a child would understand what you're saying, meaning like, hey, you know what? Rainforest Alliance, they represent 70 countries, and there's all these different farmers around the world. It's a way that we can empower farmers instead of the cattle farmers coming in and breaking down the land, to that level, so that I think a lot of people can't really visualize. We say that, yes, people are going to utilize Klima to do X, Y, and Z and BCT, but break it down in a way, give a visual understanding that a child would understand. I think that would be a great help to many individuals.
Yeah, I
hard to-
totally agree with that, Mecklenburg. So one of the things that marketing is actually working very hard on is actually a series of education materials. We know that they are working very hard on it to actually pump it out within the next few weeks and months. That should really break down, with all the ELI files of the different carbon offsets and stuff like that. And I believe one of the guys that are leading that, his name is Kuman. I think he's actually in the chat as well. So I would say that be sure to, watch out that. Yeah. I think Lil Yapper, you were going to say something.
Yeah, it's hard to encapsulate. I mean, I guess if you're just talking from like the Rainforest Alliance perspective, as Krian kind of mentioned, like having the ability to have different pools of BCTs from Rainforest Alliance projects and that access to demand for valuing those later or how they're used in DeFi later is interesting to them. I think anyone that's looking at carbon projects now is familiar with Klima and this concept of base carbon tons. And I'll post an article that has some inaccuracies in it, but someone did a kind of review of what's currently in the treasury and the vintages, the projects, and like the pros and cons and like where to go next. So it's an independent source. I'll kind of share that, and they do a good job of breaking it down. But I think like there's definitely the brand value and trust that they bring if that partnership does come true or there is some collaboration. But yeah, just the demand in the space. Like there's so much to be done on chain that you just can't do in real life. It's too slow. So people want to build interesting things and tools, and that's going to attract a lot of people, frankly. But yeah, I think maybe they would look at, just my opinion too, different pools for their tokenized offsets. Maybe they just tokenize them right out of the gate and find a way to support that with a methodology. And that's something that maybe Klima would adopt or could have a vote on. But yeah, I think it's almost the force of, somewhat of the imagination, but certainly like the brand and help. That goes a long way.
All right, thank you for your time and answers, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. We need to explain like I'm 5 and then like explain like I'm 35.
Norm, are you there?
So one more thing. But
What's up, guys?
oh, sorry. My bad.
All good.
I just want to say, if you guys did get some kind of little, like on the marketing team, maybe like a little cartoon type of commercial, maybe 30 seconds or something like that gives some kind of visual understanding of what's going on with Klima, man, I think that would propel it leaps and bounds, so that we get away from a lot of the technical jargon. I think a little visual representation would be awesome.
Working on a homepage video script as we speak. just for that, because I agree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We hear you. It is much needed.
Hey guys. So really all you guys are doing, and it's been nice to see the government's kind of and transition the power more to the DAO with the forum and stuff. I've been looking for some specific kind of answers for peace of mind around the governance that I couldn't find. So one is there like information on just basic stuff like, is there a quorum? Is there a threshold that needs to go through, or what is that threshold rather for KIPs? And then I know we're using snapshot, but is the snapshot ratified by Argent, or is there a multisig that kind of ensures that this is getting passed through without any messing around? But I'm not trust you guys, but on that multisig, if there is one, would be good, I think, for the whole community to kind of build some trust around that.
Yeah, I mean, I know on the quorum side of things, like we've had, I know we've mentioned it in the announcements as the snapshots have been going. Krian, if you have thoughts on the quorum side, as far as like, making sure that the votes that happen are enacted, and held to, there is a multisig that actually controls all of the relevant contracts. So there's no like single person who could just go do whatever they want to Klima at this point.
Awesome. Great. Any like information us on the or key that you guys have would be awesome. Just trying to get some of my some other people involved in it, and they were asking about that as well. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and another thing I will say is I know that the governance channel has been hopping a bit here. I've been following along there. It's some good discussions in there. And there, there's also a team on the DAO side that is going to start looking at governance, making sure that as from a decentralized governance perspective, that we're doing the best we can to represent everybody and keep all of our interests aligned moving forward as we try to suck up all the carbon. Okay. How many? Do you want to take a couple more? Guys, and then call it. It's been an hour. How long do you guys want to go?
There's a bit of questions still, so I'll only answer these questions.
Yeah, I'm good.
So yeah, I'm good for now. Let's keep going.
Noob money. Maybe we can't hear you.
Yeah, it might be push to talk for you, sir. Because I see your green outline.
Now I can't hear you yet. Okay. Wow.
Manny, maybe you want to rejoin?
Troubleshoot and get what's up?
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, so a couple questions. First about KIP-5. I mentioned this in one of the chats. Is there a way that it makes sense to, instead of voting on the reward rate directly, to vote on a range for the target APY, assuming a given staking percentage? and then just kind of leave it up to policy to adjust the reward rate as necessary as the block times change. My question is more so thinking kind of like long term, like if we don't have control over the block times on Polygon, like does it make more sense to vote on a target APY instead of the reward rate directly?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a little bit over this last couple of days. I mean, and for me, the big stickler is like, you know, reward rate, and APY is, you know, pretty much the biggest lever that can, you know, affects the entire community through everything. APY like inherently has to float around just based on the mechanics of, you know, how, since it's a function of you know, you get your reward based off how many people are staked, and so that kind of needs to float around a little bit. When we, you know, when policy comes together and you know, proposes, you know, any of these changes, you know, we actually use that. We do use like a prescribed staked percentage to arrive at that APY. So like this you know, the reward rate in KIP-5 is assuming the 92.5% staked percentage staked. So that's kind of like, and you're right, like we've got to have some kind of, you know, base assumption out to do the math on the calculation on that front. So hopefully, I've done some more looking at the average block times. I mean, it really ranges from the worst case scenario, or, you know, best case is that block times on Polygon are 2 seconds. So that'd be what we'd have to adjust to worst case, but I don't really see that happening anytime given the recent activity. If it does, then I think we might have to come back to the table on this, but I personally don't feel comfortable just like changing reward rates without getting community input on that front. Even if we are, you know, even if policy is doing the math to arrive at some number, that just affects everybody. That's a little bit too much in, you know, a few people's hands, I feel like, personally.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Like I you know, I think the community appreciates that kind of like thoughtfulness going in terms of like being sensitive to changing things, like just without taking a vote. I guess my main concern is like kind of the situation we're in now, where it's like the vote isn't until December 5th, right? So it's like we're running pretty hot for like a you know, a kind of this lagged period now, and then it could go the other way too, right? All of a sudden, block times start going up above the, you know, the average calculation, then now we're running cold for a while. So there's like that delay, but like I get that it's a trade-off. So maybe just like something to keep in mind, that like if it's something to think about in terms of like how could we decrease this lag if the block times are going to be moving around a fair amount. I haven't taken a look at the times of, you know, or any of the data to know like how big of an issue it actually is. It just seems to be, you know, that it got us this time just because of how close KIP-3 and KIP-5 are coming in, you know, next to each other. So yeah,
totally.
Something to think about. Second question is, so, you know, when I think about Klima, you know, it seems like everything really aligns from an ESG perspective. So like environmental, social governance. And like, you know, I think that we're crushing it on all 3 pillars, just because of the nature of the organization. So like not only the mission, but then also like the governance structure and everything else. You know, I think it's pretty clear to anybody who listens into the office hours that there's a lot of diversity in terms of both the team and then also the community. And so that's great from an S pillar perspective. Have there been any thoughts as to kind of like recruiting or promoting involvement of more women in the organization? Because to me, that seems like one thing that I just haven't seen, like through the Discord or the community. Like if I was going to try to find one place in an ESG world that I haven't seen Klima like really crushing it, it would just be like the, you know, the amount of women involved. Have there been any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know that actually that came up, was it last week or a week and a half ago on office hours? I know that came up That's definitely something we're looking at. Definitely including as far as targeting. And in my perspective, I'd like to include everybody as well, and really get a solid, representation of the human community as a whole on that front. So I think part of it's just a challenge with the. I know there are some in our community as well that just we're gonna, when we open up the DAO contributor server here soon, TM. I know we're working hard to get that up and running. That'll be an opportunity to really bring some new people in as well on the contribution side.
Yeah, for me, policy wise, when I look at applications, I could really give a fuck. I really can not care less about your gender, right? I just care if you know policy or not. Whether you're a guy, you're a girl, whatever background you have. I'm very much a believer of meritocracy. Let your experience show your ability to do stuff, right? We have a cat in policy. We have a dead mathematician. If someone comes in, you can't really see gender as a Discord profile, right? They have a regular profile picture. So whether they're a girl or not is or whether they're a woman or not is very irrelevant for me. I just want to know, policy, So if they come in, good, very good, So I hope they do. I don't want anything. I don't want something that you can't control to be a limiting factor on the joint policy or not. I just want people who know policy.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I totally get that. I think the idea more so is that because definitely keeping it a meritocracy, and definitely no one should get a position or a role or have an idea go through just because of gender. But I think just from the perspective of if there is a community that is underrepresented, maybe putting in a little effort to actively recruit in that area. Not necessarily give something to somebody that they don't deserve, but just to make sure that there are enough opportunities that if people do choose to be involved, that they have that, they know it's available and they have the opportunity. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, anyone can join policy, by the way. You just have to have a really deep understanding, of it. And yeah, I'll keep that into consideration for sure. And when we open up the DAO server again, I think I'll just on the last, very, very close. And we keep saying that soon. And then after the next policy talk, we say soon again. But I think this time is really, really soon. So I'm very excited to see the new wave of participants to come in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, that's everything from me. Thanks for the time, guys.
Yeah, thank you for the good questions. Let's bring new money back in because he had some mic issues.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me this time?
Yeah, we can hear you. Welcome.
Loud and
Hey,
clear,
new
sir.
money.
Yeah, probably it's me talking with. Oh, sorry. It's probably me using Chrome for Discord. Yeah, I guess downloading the app is mandatory. So first of all, this is not a question, but just a reminder for everyone to not swap your sKlima or sKlima using any DEX. I just want to put that out because I think that some people would think that they could swap sKlima to Klima via DEX when instead they could just unstake it on the KlimaDAO dApp, because I've seen a case in support where they tried to swap it via MetaMask and they got wrecked due to liquidity. So I guess that's one thing that has to be emphasized, especially for people who are just new to DeFi, or at least they're on the beginner side of things, I guess. Or I guess which begs the question: Are there any would there be initiatives where we would have educational materials for people who are on the newer side of DeFi? Because there are people who are interested in participating in KlimaDAO, but they are not as experienced yet as other people. Just realized.
Yeah, I know that there has been we've definitely been creating educational materials for new people to get in as well. And we've gotten some partners like Dharma Wallet currently that makes it a lot easier for non-DeFi natives to hop in and just grab some Klima as well, and probably be on the lookout for more of those collaborations to continue coming out, just to help the wider retail audience get access into Klima and help save the planet. Really.
Yeah, I guess that would be great. And what else could I ask? I think one of the people in the text channel is thinking about the value of BCT, because as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when people retire their voluntary carbon credits for BCT, it's basically a one-way transaction, right? So we cannot say unwrap back the BCT to convert the on-chain carbon credits, the BCT ones, back into the meat space, which begs the question, which some people would think is problematic because we cannot. Some people would say, is there really a value for BCT if we cannot sell it back in the meat space? Like we could unwrap things, because usually we could unwrap things in DeFi, but in this case, BCT is not, or should I say, we cannot really unwrap BCT into their respective carbon credits. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think I get where you're going with this. Yeah, so the way Toucan is set up, it's a one-way bridge, and you can't you could arbitrage, from meat space into Polygon, but you can't really go the other direction. The crazy thing that's happened in the last 6 weeks, from what I've heard, is BCT has actually provided a price for meat space people to reference for once, and say so like the prices are actually rising in meat space because of the BCT price, which is pretty astounding. But then the other flip side of that is really to on the education side, to get if say the BCT was trading lower than like the traditional markets, then people could just come buy the BCT and burn it or offset it on Polygon to claim the offset instead of going through the normal process. Like getting to where BCT and potentially other carbon offsets are available on the blockchain, and purchasing those and burning them becomes a valid recognized practice. As far as offsetting, that's the other case where that kind of stops being an issue, because then you could just purchase whichever one's most advantageous for your organization.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, and hopefully KlimaDAO does drive that. What do you call this? Hopefully KlimaDAO paves the way for a future where we use the blockchain by default and purchasing credits or carbon credits. Because I remember I just scanned through some of the issues about the sale and trade of carbon credits is the issue of double spending. But with blockchain technology, that would be difficult, as everything's transparent there. Anyone could just audit the data, audit the metadata there, and so people could just easily verify if things are double spent, I guess.
Right. Yep. And the blockchain would prevent that double spending as well.
Yes.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And
really cool. Sorry. And one last question. At what point in the supply of Klima do you think that we would start onboarding higher value carbon credits? Because because some people criticize or some people point out that the carbon credits we're putting it now are not as high value right now, but I guess it's because we're still testing if the protocol works, so that once things once we see that things are working as intended, we could now start onboarding other organizations or have partnerships with other organizations or companies that could lead us to sucking in higher value carbon credits. But when do you think is at what point do you think that would be possible? Like at a certain Klima supply,
I think
or is
that's,
it a certain time, or is it hard to gauge at this point?
I mean, I think personally, when when those types of assets or those different types of tokenized carbon credits become available, that whenever they become available, and we can look at their methodology and how it's working, and then bring those into the treasury potentially through a vote as well. I think we need them to exist in the first place, and then we can take a look at what's in them and and see how that fits into our treasury's model. So there's no, I don't really see a reason to wait until we're at certain supplies before bringing in additional types of carbon assets. I know there's been some talk with some nature specific carbon credits and stuff, and then there's some other projects that are looking to create more targeted, higher quality pools of carbon to use, because the BCT is really just like that base floor carbon ton. So that's my viewpoint on it, at least.
That makes sense, and I guess thank you for letting me speak, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Z.
Hello?
Hey, what's going on? We can hear you.
I just want to know, so now the APY will go down now. Will the bond discount also go down, or it will stay the same?
So bond discounts are calculated separately from APY, but with that slightly lower 5-day return, it'll become the same profitability on a bond will happen at a lower percentage rate. So the overall discount would go down, but it kind of goes down in line with the staking percentage.
Okay, thank you. I just want to know, so since sKlima is in your wallet, right? When you stake it, it goes in your wallet, and if there is a hack on Polygon network, does your Klima stay in wallet, or is it secured, or it can be hacked?
I'm trying to get all that. I mean, when you stake your Klima, your Klima goes and sits in the staking contract on Polygon, and then you have sKlima in your wallet that you can that rebases, and you can get claim back for Klima over time. So, I mean, it essentially all lives inside your wallet.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. What's up, Marvin?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. I have a question my questions are generally always the same thing regarding the ratio of BCT to Klima. And I'm actually happy. I see the price of Klima going down, and I think that that's much healthier for the ecosystem. I'm curious to know if this is going to become the norm, or we expect the price to jump up. Because if that's the case, I have a difficulty understanding the how I would just think that the price of Klima undermines the mission statement of the DAO.
Okay.
So let's say like how would a company, let's just choose like Nestle or something, let's say that they want to offset their carbon output, so what would they do? They would purchase Klima, right?
So to technically offset their output, they would actually like purchase
right, of course,
BCT, right, and then like burn that. Like the Klima represents, at least one BCT. But like if they wanted to like officially offset it, they'd have to like burn the BCT.
Right, but let's say that Klima acts as a sink for the BCT, such that these companies can't acquire any.
Right. Yep.
So they would not be able to offset their carbon credit, like their carbon output, by purchasing like that. This is just a little something that confuses me, because if there's a set number of backing per Klima and a company purchases Klima trying to say like, oh, this is how many like tons of CO2 that we are trying to address, like from our output. Okay, I'm sorry. There's someone at the door. I have to step away. I apologize.
Okay.
No worries. You can always come back later. Just move you back in the audience first.
Yeah, let's bring the next person up. Mars.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, welcome.
All right, first time hopping on stage here. Appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Fantastic project. My question is related to our reward rate adjustments, and I'm just sort of thinking it's more of a food for thought type of question. Would it be possible to automate those adjustments so that as the total supply increases and grows, and whatever other variables are important change, the reward rate would also change dynamically? Because right now it seems to be it's a stepwise function, and it kind of goes up like a staircase or down like a staircase, subject to certain conditions. I'm just wondering if anyone's put any thought in making that a dynamic algorithm that reacts to the current state of the protocol.
Yeah, so actually like the APY, like the amount of Klima and the yield that you earn is actually already dynamic inside of Klima, and that's just purely based off of how the Olympus mechanics work. So the reward rate basically, is a constant percentage that is of Klima that is minted every rebase and distributed to all the stakers. So dependent on how many stakers there are and what percentage of the supply that is, that's why the actual yield you earn and the APY you earn is variable on that front.
So I noticed that portion. So it feels like that there is a dynamic element, but it's dynamic within an upper and lower bound, and that upper and lower bound changes over time, subject to KIP proposals like KIP-3. I was just wondering if like we can unbound that I'm not saying it's even a good idea. I'm just wondering if we put the thought into, is that possible? Does it make sense?
I mean, theoretically it would be possible. I know that the policy team, we take a look at a lot of different metrics, and trying to determine, whether or not the current reward rate we have is sustainable, in the long run, and for how long. So that's a big thing for us is, how long, how sustainable is what we're, printing essentially in terms of new Klima every 7.25 hours at this point. And we want to make sure that we don't just like go ham and run out of backing. So we'll look at risk-free value. We'll look at the revenues we're bringing in. We'll look at bonding and what those revenues look like. We switch around some of the different capacities that we have on our bonds. Because the straight reserve or naked BCT bonds are much more efficient at building that value versus our LP liquidity bonds, but we also need the liquidity to facilitate trading in Klima. So it's trying to balance all of those things together. And the range is really just so that policy team has a guideline to stick within when making proposals within certain supply ranges. So that way we're not going to say, it's just trying to make sure that our proposals stay aligned with what the community is expecting.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, it's good. People get to vote on it. It helps with change management, helps with buy-in for the community. I was just thinking, like, if a human does it at some point, an algorithm can do it. And I haven't seen any Olympus forks like go the way of fully automated sort of policy. Maybe it's not practical to bake them into smart contracts, given whatever limitations there may be. But I appreciate the thought and the answer there. So I'll just sort of segue over to my second question. It's somewhat unrelated.
Before you ask your question, I can answer your automated policy question because I've been experimenting with this. A couple of guys at MIT are actually very interested in Olympus in particular, but namely Klima for like the ability to create natural resource assets based on like an Olympus type mechanism. Anyway, we cooked up a machine learning model that essentially is a policy team, but powered by AI based on like all the data and metrics that we come up with. But we're still testing it, and like it's like a proof of concept. But like at one point, you probably could hand it over to like a machine learning kind of engine to manage policy, because like a lot of the stuff that Cujo was talking about, like we do manually, like we check everything, we run numbers, we crunch things, like we observe kind of changes, but like obviously a computer can do this a lot faster than all of us. But anyway, I'm kind of experimenting with that. We want to kind of test it on an Olympus type prototype first, but in the future that could be something. I mean, it's cool because like they want to try and extend this model to like other types of natural resource assets, but like it's too early, right? Like carbon is like the only thing that you can really monetize at this point. But yeah, no, ask yourself.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I wonder if you can do some stuff with like adversarial networks or something, sort of competing on each other to like, break the policy. And then the other thing would be, are you guys collecting enough data and are you labeling enough data to like adequately feed an ML model? Very cool. I appreciate. I like that you guys are chatting with the guys over at MIT. It'd even be pretty cool if you guys could get on a Lex Friedman podcast. I know he's a MIT alumni. Maybe you guys have some shoots in there to sort of get connected. But
I think
my next.
Sorry, I think it's Yale and MIT. But yeah, sure, absolutely, that'd be cool.
If I can chime in about the reward rate, I mean, in my opinion, in the future, we're gonna automate everything, right? Like I'm gonna ironically kick myself out of a job with this whole automation, but I think it's for the better. Regarding the reward rate, there's a lot of two trains of thoughts on like a sudden reward rate change versus like a very gradual one, right? Like some may say like, why don't we just reduce the reward rate over like a month or two so that no one really feels the effects day by day, but over time we kind of compound and see that effect, right? In that scenario, you kind of sacrifice stability for like growth, kind of like the same way as the runway itself. But Yeah, no. Main reason why we kind of go for this sudden reward rate rather than or sudden reduction rather than a longer period is that it gives us a benefit of like realizing the effects, today, right? Rather than a period of 2 or 3 months, and we can actually kind of see the effects. We kind of can like attribute some of the metrics to that effect rather than if we see it over time. That effect is very diluted. It's not very impactful. We can't really attribute like our metrics growing because of the reward rate, right? By this, we can see that, and then we can use data for it. And then if it doesn't work, then maybe we'll switch it. But like I think this is the best idea to do today.
Is it just me or we just lost Brian?
It's me too.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
Welcome back, Brian.
Where was I? What did I cut off at?
You were just saying that it basically helps you parse the signal from the noise by doing dramatic changes. Well, relatively speaking, dramatic changes, so that you can attribute changes to the adjustments to policy as opposed to having it diluted over time if it's a gradual change.
Yeah, exactly. And then like another real big benefit is kind of like we kind of see it as reward rate change, kind of like a Bitcoin halving, like a pseudo Bitcoin halving, right? Just like how whenever Bitcoin does not halving from like the minting rewards from 25 to 12.5 or whatever, there's a lot of economic changes that happen because of that, right? And we shouldn't see it as like a reduction. We should see it as a growth over protocol, becoming much more mature over time. Like there's an infographic in marketing. It kind of shows the stages of our growth, that we see over time. And I like to think that's very powerful. Like for a day by day, you see decrease by 500% APY. You don't really think of it, right? And then, like eventually, like a month later, you'll see the APY decrease, and you're like, oh, okay, it just decreased. Like you didn't really see any effects of it. But like if you see you see the APY decrease over like a week, and then suddenly you like psychologically you think yourself, okay, like KlimaDAO is in a new phase of expansion, and that inspires some economic second order effects as well. So that's my 2 cents on the whole automation and the why we kind of go like a stepwise function with reduction.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess it can also shake out of like a local equilibrium, right? If it's more aggressive as opposed to gradual.
Exactly.
So the next question I had, total pivot, is just do you guys have thoughts in putting together luminary testimonials? I sort of negative connotation sometimes with that, or case studies where I think we first have to get to a place where we have a company who puts BCT on their balance sheet, or they're using Klima to offset their carbon, I guess, situation. Have you put some thoughts into doing like little mini research reports, research papers? It could even be like a mini documentary or something like that. I think we mentioned you had some funds sitting around in the treasury. I forget. I know you've got 2 different treasuries. One of them are funds that you guys do have access to. But I feel like something like that on the website, it's a little bit more corporate and a little bit less sort of Web3, but I think it could help for larger corporate and institutional players at some point in the future.
Archie, I think you're the best one to answer this question.
Oh, sorry, I was just looking for my mute button. Yeah, we're not going to talk to those people. Just joking.
We've seen inklings of it though. Like we've seen some people like Open Earth Foundation. They're doing some stuff. Like I don't know. I haven't looked at anything that the community has written recently on like instructions on how to do it. I don't know. What do you think, Archie?
I could phrase
it's hard
the
like,
question.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll phrase my question a little bit in more simpler terms. So basically, the rainforest company, whatever, XYZ, worked with Klima, and as a result of working with Klima and doing XYZ, they achieved result ABC type of stuff. But because you guys are, your backgrounds support kind of research and producing, I want to use the term white paper, but not necessarily the crypto version of the term white paper. And we could put together a white paper of what happened and what the impacts were for them, such that it would help us attract additional partners of that type.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So like basically like measure the network effects of KlimaDAO in a academic setting, basically. And like then demonstrate that to an institutional play. Yeah, that is under the works. There's a few people who are writing a couple pieces. I mean, it's kind of already anecdotally happening. I mean, we started seeing it in the S&P Platts global platform. If you go there, there's now a ticker for BCT, and there's like semi-regular coverage of KlimaDAO in their newsletter. Very interesting, and that's a huge markets analytics platform, and they have a special section specifically for carbon markets and sustainability and all that stuff. And we always somehow make the news there as of last week and the week before. I mean, Carbon Pulse has been extensively writing about us. Writing all sorts of great content about like what we do, how we do it, all that jazz. I think the next step is to find someone to write a paper that looks at market data and tries to infer whether or not our actions have had a real impact. Because like there's like other external demand that has like definitely contributed to a carbon shortage in the next month, like COP26 announcements and all that jazz. Like they all kind of accelerated that talk of having carbon neutrality much sooner than later, and us being kind of in the middle of it. Either it's hard to like you have to know where to point the finger. Like yes, we have 13 million tons on chain, but how much of the buy pressure was because of us, and how much of it was because of COP26 or like external buying? It's hard to say. So you need someone to go and look at the data and like really figure out, okay, like all of this stuff moved here, which then increased the price at this point. And then, I think that is probably a logical step. It's still early. Like it feels like an eternity here, but it's only been 5 weeks. So papers like that usually take months to produce.
There's got to be someone that is a professor in our Discord that just wants to write a research paper.
Yeah,
I posted one. I posted one in the Q&A if you want to look at it for anyone that cares. The University of Wyoming front ran us. Some professors there wrote up their own plans for a carbon-based, like sort of. It's similar to Klima, but I think that would be cool. I mean, we're seeing more institutional coverage, which helps legitimize things. But I agree, like an academic paper, white paper sort of thing. Ideally, like a third party would write it, right? Someone independent. We could publish it ourselves. It's all there, but I think there is demand for that. Maybe there's a Professor Climate out there that wants to contribute.
That's it for me. Those are all my questions. I guess I could talk with you guys all day. It's such a cool project. But I will step off stage and thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm back.
Hey, Marvin.
Hey, sorry about that. So my question revolves around like what's companies who are trying to offset their carbon output. It kind of seems like if Klima is acting as a carbon sink, then this is going to impact their ability to do so, because it's not even like they'd have to pay a premium for the BCT from Klima. It's just like because Klima exists, there's more buying pressure on it, so that drives the price up. So then they would have to pay more for it, but that assumes availability. So how can that be reconciled within the vision of KlimaDAO, because otherwise I'm not entirely certain how I'm not certain what good Klima really does, aside from buy assets and then use those assets as store of value to underwrite currency.
Sorry, could you clarify your question? Like,
do you mean the price of carbon going up? You're confused how that's a good thing? Is that relevant?
No. I see why that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't understand is, like, does Klima, what percentage of the total carbon credit market does Klima want to hold?
All of it.
So all of it. So how, if let's say you achieve 100%, like you hold 100% of all the carbon credits that were in circulation, then how is a company supposed to offset their carbon output if they can't get carbon credits? Are they supposed to like purchase Klima and then kind of like burn Klima?
It takes, but when the price of these projects goes up, there's more demand for future ones to be built, and people to take out investment to get projects verified and kickstart them. Like there has to be new offset projects created in the future. I think you're seeing even now, like Archie was talking about, there's definitely been a market impact. Well, could be argued there's been a market impact from Klima. But yeah, that spurs demand for new projects to become verified, and that can take anywhere from 2 to 3 years sometimes, like with an exchange or with a verification body like Verra. But that rising price also contributes to people's willingness to start new carbon projects. I don't think we'd have like 100% of the supply. I mean, right now, just from Cujo's analytics board, it looks like 3.4% has been bridged from Verra. So that's pretty cool. Like that's a stat that I watch. But for 100%, like, again, there's different types of standards out there. There's different types of projects. Right now, Klima is only accepting base carbon tons. The only ones that are available is a select, vintage of Verra projects. So it's still really early. Like I think those would be much bigger problems to have. But there will be new demand for projects. Like it's not like the world will run out.
Yeah, and just because we require it in our treasury doesn't mean like it can't come out of our treasury, right? Because like we since we kind of own the market of BCTs, right? We kind of own the market from like BCT to USDC, right? But we consider it in our treasury, so like we have it, but we don't. Doesn't mean it can't come out. People can sell in and out of it whenever they want, right? So when we own the market, like we want all the treasury, we want all the carbons in our treasury, it just means it's in our treasury. Doesn't mean we can't come in and out, right? That's all it is.
Oh, I was under the impression that BCT is locked into the treasury.
A certain amount is, right? Like there's a risk-free value associated with some of the BCTs in our treasury, but some of it is the market value, right? So like the market value is the value of BCTs, the amount of BCTs that are in our treasury, but there's also a measure called a risk-free value. And that essentially just means like this X amount can't ever come out unless of like very critical conditions, right? And those can be seen as locked, right? But like like for example, we have the BCT USDC market, like the LP pair in our treasury, but we don't consider that locked because that's like immoral and that's not right to say it is locked because people can buy in and out anytime. So we don't consider that locked. But the BCT bonds, like when people trade in BCT for Klima, that is locked. We consider that locked.
I see. I don't know. I I think that if it's strictly one way, then that will eventually cannibalize Klima's value if it's not actually going to be able to use their carbon, like the carbon credits. But there are ways to like make the credits functionally dead while preserving, while like retaining or like extracting their purchase power and putting that into the treasury. But I like if BCT is just locked into the treasury and it can never escape, then I think that might not be great for the carbon market overall.
Oh, is it because you think? I mean, essentially, demand is a function of price and supply, right? Either BCT price is going to go up, and that just means companies will have to do external methods to reduce their carbon emissions, like either by actually reducing their carbon emissions, like naturally inside their like own organization, or supply goes up. And if supply goes up, that just means more carbon projects are coming in, and that also helps the environment. Either way, I see it as a win-win scenario.
Right. So let's just have a scenario where Klima holds 100% of carbon credits, and they're locked in. That's what my concern was about. Because if it's locked in, then the credits can't be used, and they do have a purpose. And when you lock them away, then you're restricting that function.
Yeah. So the only way that happens,
and also, like if let's say it is truly one way, then I would think that would degrade the value of the credit, because then it's not going to be usable. So what value would it have?
Yeah, so like there's actually no way we can like lock 100% of the credits because we own like the BCT USDC market. Like the only way for it to be like truly locked is one Klima is equal to one BCT, which is not happening anytime soon. And two, like the price of BCTs, like just because of the AMM formula of just because of the formula of like DeFi and like liquidity markets, like BCT is $1 million. That's like the only way. There's like no physical way for it to actually be 100% locked. There'll always be like some part of it unlocked.
But that implies like a vertical expansion or like valuation rather than horizontal.
Yeah.
So like I know I might sound like bearish on the project. I actually really like this project, which is why I'm so concerned about this specific aspect of it, because I like the Olympus model, and I don't understand why it can't exist. Like why like the value can't like the floating value. I don't see why it has to reflect in price value rather than token like outstanding token count.
What do you mean by that, sir?
I mean, like, if the value of the dollar increases relative to the pound, then it's not like a dollar is now worth like $1.27. It's like for example, if you look at DAI, let's look at Maker. You're familiar with Maker and DAI? And
yes, sir.
So if you deposit your money into the DSR, the interest you're earning is not like relative to DAI value, but it is relative to like the count. So like your DAI doesn't increase in value. The amount of DAI you have increases.
Yep.
So I think that what that does is it captures purchase power, and it makes the entire ecosystem much stronger, like as a result of that. And so like if as a function of the DSR, the value of DAI goes like increases past $1, then what Maker will do is they will redistribute that, like that penny to all shareholders of it. So I don't understand why Klima or Olympus now doesn't do that, and they just translate the like speculative growth into a function of outstanding tokens.
Yeah, that's what we do actually, right? Like, so there's two. Okay, so you think of a spectrum of tokens, right? You have Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is yeah, let's assume Bitcoin is a fixed supply, right? It has a fixed supply of like 21 million, right? Whenever there's more demand in Bitcoin, supply can't expand to defer that growth, right? It only defers the growth in price, right? And that's why it's not a good currency. It's a good form of money because it always is a good store of value because all the function of demand can only go to price, right? That's why it's a good store of money. On the other spectrum is stablecoins, like you said, right? Where they defer all demand into supply growth rather than price growth, right? Because you want a stable form of currency, you want a stable form of value, so you defer all that growth into, monetary expansion, right? Ohm and like all Ohm forks, including Klima, is like a spectrum of those two, right? We have that supply expansion, like today, right? We have that supply expansion when the price of Klima is above 1 BCT, and we have that contraction period when one Klima has one price of Klima is less than 1 BCT, right? But we do defer the demand of like Klima from price to supply. That's what the supply expansion is, right? Expanding the supply so that the price of Klima the demand isn't all attributed to the price. It's just deferred. It's deferred to supply, which we are doing, right? It's just deferred over a long period of time. Right. So that's what we are doing that in a very like rudimentary sense. We're not doing it like super fast, right? Because if we do it super fast, then the premium would go crash to 1, right? Which is not a bad thing in the long term, but the revenue the protocol makes is because of the delta between the intrinsic value of the coin, 1 BCT, and the market price, right? So we want to have a balance where we can slowly trend over it. I mean, like in decades. I'm talking about decades, right? We slowly trend to that 1 BCT, but we capture all that demand with the delta over time. It's kind of like a market makers, right? If you see an arbitrage, you're not going to arb it very, you're not going to arb all of it. You want to do it slowly over time so you can capture it very slowly. So like, yeah, I guess I'm doing another one of my infamous paint drawings. So like, I don't know, like it's a concept of engineering called like impulse, where like you have a very fast change and then a very slow change. Okay, it's essentially like this, right? Like we could capture all the arbs very fast, but we would gain no intrinsic value over it, right? But we defer it over a long period of time. Suddenly we gain like a lot more value in our treasury, a lot more intrinsic value into our like token, right? So the goal is to defer it long enough till like we gain that value, but not too long whereas we don't like gain anything, right? So that's like the main goal of KlimaDAO, right? Kind of slowly gain that over time. But if we do it too slow, then there's no demand, right? If we did like 1% APY, then like no one would want to buy this token. It's not a fun token to buy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So does that mean that but like is this just based off of like the standard Olympus formula, or are you leveraging the anticipated rise of BCT value, or is that just like a happy coincidence?
It's a little bit of both, right? Like it takes time for people to onboard carbon, right? A lot of time, it takes a lot of time to like for us to obtain ITMOs, right? Companies and countries take a long time to do anything, right? Like governments or governments, but yeah. So we're just trying to delay it so that we can like have that like genuine intrinsic
So you can
demand,
capture that. Okay.
right?
Good.
Like
Sure. So I like that. I like that answer.
yeah, like the demand is like, let's say it's X today, right? But we want to like have Y, right? But if we just arbit all today, we only have X, but we're trying to get Y. That makes sense.
So is there going to be have you written down somewhere like is there going to be a change in the tokenomics for like Klima minting?
In the future, it
to
will
account
be,
for that?
in my opinion, yeah, in the future. I mean, it's just all my like interpretation, but yeah, I think
Right.
like in the future, what will happen is that we acquire so much carbon tonnage is that the percentage wise, relative wise, it'll be really hard to move Klima price. It'll be really hard to move BCT price. It'll be really hard to make a dent in our treasury to add more value, percentage wise, right? At that point, we'll be very stable, and then we'll do a revision on our tokenomics to one, make our token more intrinsically backed, and two, to reduce the supply growth, right? If it's gonna stay 40 VCTs per Klima in the future, and it doesn't change for in 3 months or 6 months, then it's pretty safe to say that we should increase our intrinsic value to that $40, that 40 BCTs per Klima, for example.
Right.
And then once that happens, then we can actually do some crazy stuff with our token. We can essentially think of the Frax model, but on steroids, right? Frax is around 82% backed, right? And you can see all the AMOs they did, right? And that's some crazy stuff. We're doing the same thing, but we'll be 10%, 20% backed, right? And that's even more capital efficiency, right?
Right. I mean, leveraging anticipated valuation against current, sure, but so what I like what you're saying. It just depends on the time frame. And the last time frame that you mentioned, you said was over the course of decades. Does what you just said also apply to that time frame, or no? You would expect to address those tokenomic issues sooner, or is it really time, or is it based on valuation? And if it is based on valuation, what is that valuation?
Yeah, definitely based on both, but definitely a more time-based formula than valuation, in my opinion. I would love to talk to you more, Marvin, but we've been talking with your question for a while, and it's a lot of people still want to answer questions.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be a hog.
No, it's okay. It's
step
okay.
away.
We'll get a couple more questions because I do have work to do. So
Sure. Take
yeah. Thank you for your question. Let's get Dordan in.
Hey guys, can you hear me? I think so. Great. First off, good vibes. Love the project and what your team is doing, and the community is pretty awesome. And thanks for being kind of all hands on deck right now during a bit of a price crash and lots explaining everything to us. I guess my first thing that I wanted to say is that I work for an international NGO, an aid organization. I've made some progress with management, convincing them to use BCT to offset our carbon footprint for our projects, and that once this becomes an option on Toucan, we hope to do that as soon as possible. So that would be cool. I guess there's probably been a lot of questions today about pKLIMA, and I think Krian, you answered quite a few of them in a previous statement. But I guess there's from what it sounded like, there were concerns at some point that maybe pKLIMA was having an effect on price and on the protocol. And I was wondering if there was that, the changes that you talked about before were out of concern over its effect on fairness, and whether those changes have been effective in your mind, and could further measures be taken to limit pKLIMA's impact on Klima, Klima's price and Klima's adoption. Thanks.
Cool. So I'm going to address this once and for all so we stop talking about it, because this is kind of frustrating at this point. pKLIMA has been around since the inception of the project, and it's part of the terms of what we've built here. It rewards those who took huge risks way before any of us believed that any of this was possible, and whether or not we even had a shot at success. I mean, quite frankly, when we were asking and raising money back then, like it was not because we wanted to, it's because we had to. We thought that we didn't think that we would have the success we have today. So bear that in mind. And there's obviously a lot of people upset that they didn't get in early and whatever, so on and so forth. That being said, all these people, nobody got anything for free. So everyone contributed either financially or they have been part of the core team and working on it. So all of these people took on huge risks, put up a lot of cash, or worked really, really hard. So in my mind, a lot of them basically, deserve what they got. It's a huge reward for, huge risk. And so many of these people that I know, like good friends of mine who worked on the core team, like they took no payment since like April. They basically worked on their savings to get this running. So bear that in mind when you say stuff like that, because it's frustrating. That being said, everyone got terms that were agreed to according to the schedule. So it's, I think, 7.8% in team, 3.5% for investors, 1% for advisors. This is circulating supply. So this means that investors cannot own more than this at any given time, meaning the other 90%-ish is owned by the protocol. So the price decrease that you're seeing is not because of people's dumping of the price, it's actually because of your peers selling. And if you look at this, the way to prove all of this, if you look at the minting rewards, Cujo did a fantastic dashboard on this, and it shows you where the most Klima appreciation comes from. It's not from pKLIMA redemptions, it comes from staking rewards, most of it. And especially in the last few days, we implemented a fix for WS-Klima. Same bug that was in Ohm, like it's now almost negligible. So people that are selling are people who are earning from staking rewards. So, saying that it's pKLIMA dumpers is A, not correct, and B, not fair to those who worked really, really hard to get us to where we are today. So that being said, I hope that answers your question. But the mechanics are already there at the beginning. These people will never own more than that percentage of the actual protocol. Everything else is up for grabs from everybody else in the actual ecosystem through bonds and through staking.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that adds a lot of clarity to the questions that people have been having. And I'm sorry if this is a touchy subject. I think on the Medium there's a bit of information, but it's not as comprehensive as what you just outlined. So thanks for answering that question, and good luck, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
All right, let's get Steve in here.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, guys. Thank you for taking my question. I love the project. I appreciate everything you're doing. My question has to do with the fundamental long-term value of BCT. So I was wondering, it's a little bit long, but I was wondering if you could help me out here. First, from a two-prong approach, the other registries, do you see any potential threat? I'll expand on that. And second, mandatory compliance versus voluntary compliance. I'll also expand on that. So according to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, BCG's research arm, it seems that Climate Action Reserve, Gold Standard, and some of the other registries are growing faster than Verra, particularly with respect to large companies, energy utilities that would fall under the umbrella of an obligated party, meaning that they got to comply with some respective government mandate, wherever they may be located, US, EU, Asia. So I was wondering if you could, one, comment on the competitive threat that perhaps these other exchanges and project registries pose to Verra and BCT, given that they generate both mandatory compliance credits, for instance, for California's LCFS or CCOP. And then the second thing kind of goes further into that, given that, BCT is just from a voluntary perspective. I was wondering, do you see that there's any long-term threat and erosion to its value, given that, you can go buy mandatory compliance units. They're priced regularly on Argus, Opus. You guys have mentioned Platts. And that, the voluntary credits won't be accepted under the programs that I just mentioned, like US LCFS, EU's RED 2, the future RED 3 program, China's new ETS trading system. So it seems like there's a real inherent threat long-term to the value of BTC, given that mandatory credits and other schemes can supply both the mandatory compliance market as well as the voluntary compliance market. And on top of that, it seems like a lot of these utility companies are investing in CCUS technology, methane recapture. I know BlackRock is bringing a lot of money and investment in. So in terms of a long-term view, I was wondering if you guys could sort of talk about where the picture is in your mind on the value of BCT and how Klima and BCT will be able to add value in this changing landscape. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to this. So there's a lot coming. So you're right. Like, other registries are growing, and there's actually a question about this in Office Q&A as well. Why Verra? We started with Verra because it was the biggest today. Like today, if you look at right now, it makes up 60% to 70% of the market. That being said, yeah, Gold Standard, CC, or American Carbon Registry, and the others are growing. They're newer and they're gaining legitimacy and size. It's just a matter of time. That being said, I mean, the Toucan guys have already expressed, from day one, they were like, okay, we'll start with Verra, but, we're going to move on to Gold Standard pretty soon and then everything else after. Each of these registries obviously has its own process for doing things. So you just got to modify the process to get there, and then you create your tonnage. So in all instances, yeah, Klima is not agnostic, is completely agnostic to where these tons come from, right? Where we're even considering taking compliance level tons, not just voluntary. ITMO from the BITMO platform for blockchain for climate, for instance, is a great example. The first country to issue an ITMO, that's literally the only thing holding it back right now, is one country just has to issue an ITMO after the Paris Agreement in COP26, which was monumental this year. They finally agreed on it, meaning they can issue ITMOs. As soon as they issue those come up on chain through the BITMO platform, and we can start buying them. We can start issuing bonds for them, and this will just incentivize everybody else to start working with us. It's fascinating because there's definitely opportunity to be made there, and it becomes this huge ecosystem very quickly. So yeah, I mean, to your point, we're not stopping at Verra. Verra's the first one. It's now we're just waiting. I mean, there's a lot of other projects now, 2 or 3, I think, in the works that are working on their own bridges that will support pretty much every single possible voluntary carbon registry. So by next year, you'll see every possible ton coming from any market. As long as there's a financial opportunity to do so, people will bridge them.
Yeah, great. So, I was just wondering if you could, again, touch on the longer term value, because to me, it doesn't seem like the voluntary markets will have long-term value, given that compliance credits can satisfy both a mandatory and a voluntary market. And again, I don't want to sound bearish, but
no, I get it. And I've heard this argument before from private market people. Yes and no is the answer to your question. So sort of the compliance, sure, can satisfy the voluntary demand, but the reason the whole voluntary market emerged is because the compliance market, A, doesn't have like a measurable standard of quality, and B, it just doesn't meet what people really want. So, you know, as the free market does, it creates its own things, and the voluntary market kind of emerges. It also is like much more fluid in the sense of pricing. Like compliance markets are very hard to trade for nearly anyone, even as a large organization. So voluntary markets you can actually, you know, not only compete in but participate in as an organization. And now thanks to, you know, the Toucan guys, anybody in DeFi can also participate in that growing market. So to say that they don't have long-term value, I would disagree, because there's also a growing number of people in the compliance space. They're basically looking at voluntary markets as, like, if you look at a lot of the news that came out of COP26 is a good example, but they're looking at voluntary markets as a way to incentivize, you know, proper compliance behavior. So for instance, a good example is Colombia, right? Like they have nationally determined contributions that they got to meet in their compliance market, but they force their own country's companies to purchase from the voluntary market within their own region, meaning that the two kind of benefit each other.
They go off of the ISO 14064-1 standard. Yeah, it's an ISO standard that they go off of.
Yeah,
they don't.
Yeah.
They can generate. They
Yeah,
don't have.
Right. So, but regardless, like you still have, you know, this kind of circling idea that companies can, or countries are looking at using voluntary or established voluntary markets to address their compliance needs. Right. The same is true, like in BC forestry in Canada. You're looking at American carbon registry in the States. So
yeah,
the argument that voluntary markets are not here to stay, I would say no. I would say that they are, and they will work with compliance markets, either be absorbed by compliance markets in the sense that, like, you know, it's going to just, that will be the compliance market from now on, or it'll be like this kind of like market where one feeds into the other kind of situation. I mean, you know, the one part of the equation that they still have to figure out in many instances is if you have nationally determined contributions in your under your Paris 6 contribution allowances, and then you purchase voluntary offsets, does that count under your balance sheet, right? Like,
It does not. There has to be an adjustment.
Exactly, right? So if it does, if suddenly people do start accounting for that, it means that the two markets have to work together. If they remain separate, then yeah, like then adjustments will have to compete in a completely different place. But it's like, in my mind, it's a brand new market. Like, compliance market doesn't really exist until like 2 weeks ago, since COP26.
If your bet is on the voluntary market, which, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and you've laid it out pretty clearly, then in terms of BCT, if I were a company, if I were BlackRock, or I were JP Morgan, or I were any large company, why would I not in GeoCredits or GeoCredits effectively doing the same thing in the voluntary market, but traded through the CME, a very liquid contract that I can use as a hedging instrument for other parts of my business? The liquidity doesn't seem to be there, and the mechanics of the exchange don't seem to be there. So I'm wondering, you know, what value, again, if voluntary is the way to go, what value does this have over already existing options that also work through the Verra registry and the climate action reserve, et cetera, all of those?
It's a good point. I mean, there's definitely a lot to unpack in there. But have you ever tried to buy voluntary offsets in size?
I mean, certainly you have to have the capital to do it, but you can.
But have
buy
you ever tried? Is my question. Have you ever tried it?
I will not comment on that.
Okay, but the reason where I'm going with that question is not to put you on the spot, but like, if you've done it, you understand that it's incredibly hard to buy volume at prices that are liquid and also stable. Like, sourcing a lot of tons, like in the size of, let's say, KlimaDAO. Like, if you're trying to buy 10 million carbon tons, you're going to be sourcing from like 40 to 50 projects You're going to be negotiating price across a zillion things, and no one's going to give you consistent pricing. Liquidity is not there. Some will give you average deliveries.
But
Like
that's
it's just a
what the
mess.
CME does. That is what the CME
Right.
does.
Yeah, but
They're there
CME,
to
CME is
exchange
just
it, and they
Chicago.
have. Yeah, but they
Yeah.
act as the market maker in that sense. They are there to provide the liquidity and to reduce the counterparty risk. That's what I'm saying. It's a safer option.
Exactly.
You
So
can
that's
block trade.
so
I don't understand
BCTs are
what your
exactly the
point
same
is.
thing. My point is BCTs are exactly the same thing as CME, just done a DEX. Right? It's exactly the same thing. It's an index of carbon projects provided by an automated market maker. Instead of actually trusting a whole institution, you're trusting a smart contract to do it instead. So it's exactly the same process. It's just much deeper in liquidity over time, right? Because more and more people trade and transact with it.
Mind if I ask, like, do you know the fees that CME does to do these like large volumes compared to like a DEX, right? Because DEX is very transparent on like what you can get and whatnot. You know.
1 cent per ton.
So you're saying that like we kind of already have this market maker, Steve?
Say that again.
You're saying that like the argument is that like, we kind of already have this market maker, right?
Yeah, my phone cut out. Yeah, well, I just don't understand if I'm an investment bank, why I would use this platform versus the CME.
Yeah, so like a lot of the benefit is that or I guess the downside, I guess, is you have to trust the CME, right? Versus Sushi Swap, you kind of like, or like between like a smart contract, because like, you don't know, what happens behind the scenes of CME, right? It is regulated, right? But
You
because
do know, because you have to register with the CFTC, you have to register with FINRA. I mean, there's legal recourse and mechanisms in place with the CME.
yeah, but it's all open for on the DEX, right? Like there's still some form of trust you have to assume, right, with the CME, or
I mean, the trust is that the justice system works, that you can get your legal recourse if something goes wrong. And the CME does take off the risk, like you're saying the DEX would. They absorb the risk, they take out the counterparty risk. That's why people trade through CME.
that's true. That's true.
Right, but this is not really a question for Klima though. This is generally like crypto versus CME, right? Like CME also trades in like Bitcoin futures as well, right? Like it's not like this is the same argument of like, do you hold Bitcoin on your balance sheet as like a spots, like, in your own custody, or do you do it through a derivative product, right? Like the question of whether or not institutions would use this comes to whether or not they accept crypto in the first place, right? Like Michael Saylor's like whole MicroStrategy, like they actually hold spot Bitcoin. They don't hold a derivative. They don't hold like a exchange traded future, nothing. Like it's all in their actual assets, right? Whereas, the CME is a great platform for those types of institutions, definitely the case. But if institutions suddenly decide, tomorrow that crypto is something they want to hold on their balance sheet, I mean, BCT is a natural, product that came out of carbon and Klima as a result, as a derivative of it. But that's not really a question for us to like answer and like incentivize. That's really just a question of like, do institutions accept crypto in the first place? Because if they do, then this is like a no-brainer for them if they have like a ESG incentive. If they don't, then it's it's not really us to change their mind, right? Like it's totally in their hands.
Sure, yeah, I know, I understand that. And again, guys, I like what you're doing, but I have to look at this with a critical eye before I put any money into it. And I like the idea, right? I like the theory. But my question is not if they accept crypto. The assumption is already that they do accept crypto. And why would they go for BCT? I'm concerned with the long-term value of the BCT and how it relates to Klima relative to other alternative liquid options out there on the market. That's really what the heart of this is. I want to feel secure about the long-term BCT.
Yeah, and I get that. But my question is find me another carbon asset that's as liquid as BCT and as transparent.
NGO credits and geo credits.
They have $150 million worth of liquidity on any given trade, and they trade $40 million a day after 5
There's a
weeks of
lot.
existing.
Yep, and LCFS prices on Argus. You can go look at the volume and the trades on that as well. But that's again a different market, but that is a type of compliance credit that is highly liquid, highly traded in volume.
Because I think the only one I would compare against would be EU ETS credits, right? Like I think that's probably the closest thing in volume, and that price hasn't really suffered at all. In fact, it's increased in the last 3 years, especially. But I wouldn't say that anything other than that is probably liquid.
Oh, they're definitely liquid. I encourage you to go look at the CME when you have a chance. But again, thank you guys. I appreciate all your questions.
Awesome.
All right, I'm bringing like 2 more people, and then we'll have to close this down.
Hey guys.
Yeah. Some good questions, positive vibes.
Yes,
When
yes, of
do we
course.
get haircuts in policy?
Shaping up. All right, Staking, what do you got?
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for having me on again. Just got a question regarding the KIP-5. So the rebase timing, it was a bit of a mistake the way I see it. A little bit more rewards were given out. I'm just wondering, like, shouldn't we actually be lowering the APY even furtherly to kind of make up for those extra rewards that were given out, or does that not even matter?
Yeah, so like when I was doing calculations, it's like a 10% delta from the expected, and like because like the APY is such a magnified term, so like we see this double expected APY, but the reality is we like just see the delta of like 10%, right? And even though we're reducing like the APY, effective APY by another like 50% of something, it's a very small delta like day to day. So the majority of the ramifications are already fixed with this KIP-5. So I don't see a need to reduce it even further, right? Also, just because it kind of KIP-3 kind of already set the stage for 22K APY, so I don't want to like go against that as well. But yeah, I was also thinking about it, but we kind of determined that like it's not a crucial thing to change to reduce even further because they would do another like framework, not another framework, we would do another KIP to amenify this even more. So we thought it would just be best just to keep it at 22K, just to keep it in line with everything.
All right, cool. Fair enough. Just another quick question. There was talk about, I think in the marketing plans to kind of get more tutorial videos for people that are not so much into crypto, to kind of show them the way crypto works, and also to show them what KlimaDAO is, because like I have like a lot of people that I would love to tell them about it, but I'm kind of new to crypto, but I'm pretty good with computers, so it's quite easy for me to just look up a couple of tutorial videos and just figure it all out to buy Klima. But I can imagine for a lot of people that I would tell, they would just not even they'd be excited about the project, but they just wouldn't even be able to do all these steps, MetaMask and swap and sushis and what. So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, is there like a timeline for like when these things are coming out, like when more information for like the masses is coming out, marketing information?
You mean like onboarding? Like a brand new person buying Klima and staking it?
Yeah, basically.
So in the Q&A, some people posted some recommendations. Like, yeah, I think it's for US people only. But Dharma wallet lets you go from fiat right to Polygon, Matic network. So that makes it really easy for someone to avoid the bridging that I think a lot of people have done. I know some exchanges, I don't know if crypto.com does. I've maybe seen some tweets, but some exchanges will let you purchase and then send Matic to a wallet or something.
Yeah.
Okay, they do now. Okay, so that's like where I would point. There's also community Notion page that I can share in the Q&A that goes through steps depending on your geo and your tech preference, like different options to be had. But generally, like, yeah, Dharma app is good for US, and then I think crypto.com is in a bunch of different countries or has support there. So those would just be two to recommend, but I'll share the community written document for that because I think it's pretty helpful.
Yeah, I've seen that one for sure. I was just wondering if like some official stuff was coming out for like the website. I know that the website's getting rebuilt. But yeah, even I think in earlier today's call there was also talk about like I think it was today's call. Yeah, like marketing videos, how we could market better KlimaDAO, and yeah. Just wondering, like, is there a timeline when like this marketing stuff is coming out? I know they're working busy on it. I don't want to place any pressure, but I'm just kind of curious.
Guess I don't have like specific timeline. I mean, there's a lot of things that are being worked on that will be released. I don't know if we've released anything like publicly. Some of it's surprise, but I don't really have something like that. I'll say there's a lot of things that are being done now. Most recently, like a lot of just interviews. I know those aren't necessarily the best content, but that's consumed a lot of time recently. But I would say if you aren't already in the contributor Discord, or if you'd like to be in there, it's very well organized of what is actively being worked on and what needs to be done as well, and some of the deliverables. So that might be the easiest place for you if you are curious to see like what's happening behind the scenes.
All right, I'll ask to get in there again. I already asked, but I still haven't gotten a response.
All right. Well, I'll ping me a DM and we'll get you in there.
All right, cool.
We weren't trying to exclude. I think once you're in there, you'll see it's pretty well organized. It's more manageable than we had before, and that's a lot of testament to people like Marcus and Chaz and everyone else. But yeah, DM me and I'll get you in there.
All right, thanks, man.
Let's do one more person and we'll wrap it up because this has been a very long policy talk, and I love talking with y'all, but we gotta do policy stuff, you know.
Maybe someone will ask us how to set up a CME account. Must be easy. All right, Pedor.
Hey guys, you guys answered most of my questions. I just had to touch base on what the last guy was saying. Do you guys have plans on incorporating? I know you touched briefly on it, but I think Reddit is like a huge onboarding community for a lot of people that don't know about Klima, and there's a lot of misinformation that's going around on it right now as well. So I was just seeing if you guys actually like check the subreddit for Klima, and if you guys plan on using it more to get more people on board.
Yeah, we have a Reddit. I think Chaz runs it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying too. Is like, so like for instance, right now there's a lot of misinformation that is happening on there.
Ooh, I see.
Yeah, and I was seeing if you guys could start moderating that a little better.
That's a good question for community. The community team in the Discord would probably get them all over it. So yeah, if you just start getting them to churn out content, I think that's probably a real easy ask.
You say it's looking sparse on Reddit?
Yeah, it's looking sparse, and there's just a lot of people just freak out. For instance, right now people are just talking about how they're accusing you guys of like pretty much selling off a ton of the BCTs, and that you guys are like fucking up you guys are just like doing all this stuff that isn't actually happening.
Yeah, I told Archie to stop doing that. So he just I hear you. Like, we also have a Telegram that I feel is not utilized as much. I mean, most of the activities.
I'm in there.
I mean, I know it's Reddit, but
yeah,
if someone new to like Klima is doing a search, they're gonna go to that subreddit and kind of look at it, and they're seeing all these posts of people accusing you guys of, you know, stealing from the treasury or like doing all this stuff. I don't think it's a good look.
I get
Just
yeah,
like
I mean,
look at the treasury contract and it's like only in. There's like no withdrawals ever.
this is why
It's impossible.
this is why I left ETH Trader, ETH Finance. I don't know if you guys used to frequent those subreddits. I moved to crypto Twitter full time, which is, I don't know if it's any better. Yeah, we can. I'll mention it to Chaz. I think one, we could maybe do a better job of just cross posting Medium articles. Are pretty factual and back up what we are actually doing. But noted. Especially if there's, I don't mind FUD, but incorrect FUD. I mean, that's no fun. So
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. But I appreciate you guys.
well, thanks for the heads up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I think that wraps it up for this time.
I was only on here for part of it. You know, a lot of y'all were on here a long time, so thank you. And the drawings were wonderful. That's awesome. That actually, it was a brilliant concept. And you guys have a lot of patience, and so thank you for it.
No, I love talking to everybody. I'm gonna put a few words from me before I like head off too, because I'm super sick. But you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Climate change can't fix in a day. You know, we're trying our best. Like day to day, it's very small progress, but over time, we're trying to build an empire. Okay, like if we're looking at, I don't look at price. I only look at price for one reason and one reason only: for policy, right? Like I'm here for the long term. You guys should be here too. If you think like this small like dip is gonna get me and Cujo, get policy team, get Khyezr, get Archimedes from us to like save the goal of climate change, you're wrong. I'm here for a long time. I'm trying to save the fucking climate. Okay? I don't care what the haters think. I don't care what anybody thinks. We're gonna save climate change. We're gonna get all the big carbon producers, get all the middleman brokers to freak out saying, why the fuck is this random ass carbon token pumping the price up? We already doubled the price of carbon, like all the low carbon, and we're not stopping, okay? The medium quality, the high quality, the extra high quality, we're getting all of it. We're pumping the price to its true intrinsic value. We're not stopping till BCT is 1,000 until the higher qualities are 10,000, and we're forcing every company that are migrating, they're mitigating their carbon offsets by buying these cheap carbon tokens to forcibly make them carbon neutral. Okay, that is my goal, and I ain't stopping till that happens. Okay, it is super annoying that these companies can buy these carbon offsets and pretend they're carbon neutral just by buying like these carbon tokens for $2. Okay, that is a shame and that is not cool. Okay, so we're gonna fix that. And we're fixing it one day at a time. Like, I'm tired, okay? I'm very tired, but I work day and night at this Klima policy just so we can make this happen, okay? So please work with us. Please stay confident in us, believe in us. I want you guys to be in the revolution, this carbon revolution with us. That's all I gotta say. Sorry. Just have to say that.
Well said. Yeah. That's motivating. We got Archie. Yeah, he's passing the Discord torch to you, and I know you've jotted down some notes.
No,
so,
okay, so I agree. I'm not fucking leaving. Just like that the seed in Wolf of Wall Street. But no, this is it. Like we've done it. We've already made a dent. I've had numerous calls, people calling me, telling me, hey, what's happening in the market? Have you heard of this Klima thing? And I just openly deny knowing anything about it. And then they proceed to tell me all about how this thing is just destroying the market. They have no recourse. They have no way to deal with it. People are like genuinely scared. Like in the TradFi world, they're like, these guys, they've made the price 100 times, 100% higher. Like, what are we gonna do? So I mean, it's working, and we're not gonna stop. Like this is just gonna continue, and it's I'm getting more and more of these calls of people like telling us that things are things are happening. So yeah, it's exciting. It's gonna be, and we're here for a long time. We're gonna be here till like Brian said, till we have everything.
Yeah. You think $7 per carbon ton is the end? No. We want everyone to use carbon pounds instead. $1 per carbon pound. No. $1 per carbon ounce. Okay, that's how much we're going to influence the market.
Exactly. No, and we already have, and like it's truly staggering. It's so crazy to me to watch, and now we're getting regular media. We've got our own ticker. The TradFi carbon market world knows who we are, and they know that we're not going to stop.
Yeah, you put respect on that name.
World will fear Klima policy. They'll fear a Karen-haired dead my petition. That's all I have to say.
I'm doing my part on my Bumble profile. I said I'll only talk to you if you own Klima, so I'm doing my small part for the few messages I get.
What a king!
So far, no matches, so there's more work to do.
God, I'm laughing so hard. But it's been good. I mean, hopefully this clears up a lot of the KIP and rebase timing stuff that we talked about. People feel confident about what's coming in the future and like to get excited for what's coming. I mean, it's 6 weeks is on Thursday, so we haven't even hit a single quarter, which is nuts.
Can Klima get a CME account? Do they take a
just to FUD in the troll box?
Well, I mean, it is useful. I don't disagree. Like, it's part of the market. It's extremely hard
totally
access to these things. Like, I was joking. I know it's apples to oranges, but like I remember looking at Bitcoin futures a long time ago and going through the process of setting up the brokerages, and like the interfaces suck and they're slow. I mean, DeFi has some of its drawbacks too. So I don't think what he was saying was completely out of touch, but for anyone that's trying to go through the process of getting onto a brokerage like that, good luck.
Marcus, any closing comments?
Let's fucking go.
Okay.
All right, back to the metaverse then.
All right, let's close this down. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, if you have any questions, post them in policy forum. We're always there to answer. So
appreciate
it from there.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you so much, guys. Let's fucking go.